The last trump that's mentioned by the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Corinth church, and then you take a look at the trump of God that's mentioned in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 16 to 18. A lot of people mistake that for the last trumpet in the book of Revelation, the seventh trumpet. What if I told you that's not it? Ty, what do you mean by that? It has to be it. That's the last trumpet in the book of Revelation. No, hear me on this. Paul wrote his letter to Thessalonica way before John wrote the book of Revelation. John wrote the book of Revelation around 95, 96 AD. Paul's letter to the church in Thessalonica, if I remember correctly, that was one, if not the very first letter that Paul wrote. Okay, so there's a big gap between there. And if you know anything about Jewish history, just in general, trumpets are blown for a lot of stuff. So trumpets are part of the Jewish culture. That would have been known to a lot of the people at that time, because even though you had Jewish believers and you had Gentile believers, they would have still been familiar with ancient Jewish customs, because that's the flow of where Messiah Yeshua, came, of course. Listen to this. There is a 7 feast of Israel, primary feasts: Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and Pentecost. Those took place in the Old Testament, but they also represent things to do with Christ. Passover, the Lord's first coming, unleavened bread when he was in the tomb, first fruits when he resurrected, and Pentecost when the Holy Spirit came. But those are the spring feasts. There are 3 fall feasts: Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Tabernacles. Tabernacles is taking place during the millennial reign of Christ when we come up and celebrate him. I believe that's a birthday party for him for various reasons. You have the Day of Atonement. That represents the tribulation. But then you have the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets. My friends, they would have been familiar with that feast, and it's intriguing because the last trumpet that's blown on the Feast of Trumpets is the longest and the loudest, and many also link that to the trump of God. Think about that. And then to take it a step further, back in the day, there was a 2-day window for the new moon on when the Feast of Trumpets would start, and they needed 2 witnesses to verify when it would start, so no man literally knew the day or the hour that the feast would start on. Does that sound familiar? I want you to think about this stuff, all right? Now, we don't know the day or the hour that Yeshua's coming, but we do know it's getting close. So keep that stuff in mind. If you like content like this, you can hit the follow button for more, as always. Now, the deadline is in under 2 weeks. We're doing a 3-day class teaching on why God created sex, how intimacy in sex between a married couple reflects intimacy between us and God in worship, how the enemy took it and perverted it, deep dive in the Song of Solomon, and more. Click the link in my story or bio to sign up and be added to the email list.